Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello and welcome back to Lou's Potpourri Week 4. Probably be the last week of the Potpourri because I am hopefully going to finish up the cab. And I've got another little project that should be quick enough that I can get it done this week. And then we can start on an actual dedicated build to one subject again next week. So let's start off with where we left off on the cab. So let's join me at my workbench, won't you? Okay, here we are back on this mess of a table and working on the cab. Oh, first let me introduce you to what the next project will be, and that is the 1000 scale Grissom and Bird of Prey combo from round 2. I've had this floating in the periphery for a while, but a brilliant modeler and an all-around decent Joe named Daniel Broadway, and I'm sure you know that name, emailed me this morning wanting to know if I would look at the file that he had made for some masks that he was contemplating for the Grissom. And I looked at it and I wrote him back. I said, Daniel, you read my mind because this is something that I had had on the side burner and wanted to get to. And he had done a lion's share of the work. So I am not shy in saying, Daniel Broadway, you've made my job a lot easier. Thank you for the work that you've done. I will be stealing it most highly. And, of course, you will be getting complimentary sets because of it. But where we are back on the cab is making, let me put it this way, making boxes for the lights. And here you can see one such. Oh, by the way, I did this side panel of red epoxy in the tail lights, brake lights, and boy, does that look good. That looks just marvelous. So I'm going to quick do that on the other, and then I'm going to come up with some sort of milky white. There's no such thing as a clear white, so I'm just going to do some sort of milky tinted resin for the rest of these and get that set up this week. But whilst I am roughhousing with this piece, I came up with these boxed areas for lighting, and this one is cleverly designated as back, and this one is designated as front. You can see by the clever little F and B's on here, but it goes something like that. And then I'm going to put a string of lights in here to shine out through all the holes. Now, here's what that looks like from the inside, and you can see from that I've got a place where I can wrap these strip lights around and see how well that works. And I've come up with an idea that I don't know how original it is, whether anybody else has done it or not, but it's making life a lot easier for me. Now, I hollowed a lot of this out to make room, and it's very irregular, so you could do a lot of fitting and cutting and fitting and cutting to try to figure out how to make these contoured boxes. And let me see, this is that. See how nicely that shape there fits the contour of the box, or fits the contour of what I've got hollowed out. And I accomplished that using this fun little thing, which is basically a contour gauge. And you can pick this up at Harbor Freight or any of your big box hardware stores. And it's a fun thing because it'll help me get my irregular shape. Let me show you how it works. First I flatten everything down here to get it nice and flat. Now I've set up now I'm trying to do this with one hand. I don't even know where my tripod is, so rather than trying to track that down, I'm just going to try to show you this with one hand. I did this much of it just with tape. I put some tape across here, traced out the outline on the tape, transferred that to some sheet styrene, and cut it out. But once I got to this point and this point, I was able to draw a line on the resin part and line this up with that. Now what I'm doing here, and this is going to take two hands. So let me put the camera down. Okay, so basically what I did was this. I laid that on the pencil lines that I had made, and then I just went through and pushed down all these little feeler rods, all these little pieces of wire that are bound in there. And what that gave me was a shape that, well, you can see the negative of it here, but it gives me a positive shape that looks like that. Let me move this cab out of the way and see if I can make this any more clear. It gives me a positive shape that looks like that. So what I did at that point was take a piece of, do I have one here? Just a piece of white styrene, put it underneath of it, and then trace off that contour. Once I've traced off that contour, I can cut it out, and it ends up looking something like that. And that will give me something that matches all of the, or many of them. It's not, 100% accurate, but it gives me many of the contours that allows me to make this piece match as good as it does. And I will have minimal amount of puttying and filling to make that fit. See how nicely it fits up and around there now. So now I can just with a minimal amount of putty fill that in and light block it. So what I need to do now is get this bit of strip lighting. This is going to go in like that. I need to get it wired up, powered up, and stuck to this inner framework here, and then we should be able to pop it in there and see how effective it's going to be. Okay, what we've got here is a little light box, a strip of lights with a two-sided wall. Forgive the flickering, it's because of this. But when you put it in the area it's supposed to go, you get nice headlights. Now, I have to fill those with resin first to further diffuse it, but I think that's giving me the goal that I want. Now, in the back I will use a strip of red lights, but I wanted to see how the white lights would fare, and they do a good job there. A little bit too sourcey, but I think I can fill it with diffusing material before I do the back one. This is the back wall, so I can do something different with that and hopefully take care of that problem. But I think that's going to be, rather than wiring up a bunch of individual bulbs, I really think that's going to be a better solution. So I need to go ahead and whip up the red strip for this, but I also need to go in and finish filling in these guys with resin. Hello, howdy, and welcome back. It is Tuesday, and I have reason number one why you should never build models in your sleep. Early this morning, in the wee hours, I found myself awake and could not sleep. So I decided to get up and work on the taxi a little bit, and I figured, hey, if I mixed up some resin or some of epoxy and put it in the headlights, then I could, by the time I get up normally, they'd be set up and I could get to work on lighting those. Well, that's good in practice and everything, but when you're in the middle of the night and you should be asleep, you're not thinking as clearly as you ought to. And so I went ahead and mixed up the 15-minute slow cure epoxy, and I think right now you can see what the problem is going to be. See this? See this? All this yellow? Yeah, that you can hide that when you are mixing it with red and making tail lights, but when you put it straight in your headlights, I mean, they came out beautifully smooth and all of that. I mean, that's gorgeous. Look at that. But they are also yellow. Those headlights should be clear. They should be white. They should not be yellow. So I should not have used epoxy for those. So I'm scrambling, trying to figure out, do I drill them out? If I drill them out, what would I replace them with? Do I have to live with it? All that kind of stuff. And then I remembered one of these fine gifts that I was given by Elliot Brown way back when he sent me the care package full of stuff for my birthday. And he sent me this, which is nail polish, or acrylic nail finish. And I'm not going to ask you where you got it, Elliot. What you do on your own time is your own business. But it's acrylic nail. Bring the salon home, yes, because you don't want to be cut in the salon. Basically, it is a acrylic nail finish, and it comes in two parts. There's a powder and actually a monomer and a polymer, I guess is what it would be scientifically. But you put this powder on your nails, and then you put a little bit of liquid on top of it, and it turns into a clear acrylic. Well, that works fine for windows. As a matter of fact, it's what I had planned on doing my big enterprise windows with, but I needed practice first. So I practiced on this one, and that was just a little. See, it's, using the same method on the tape on the outside, I got the nice smooth finish. But you put a few, and this is where my learning curve comes in, because I'm trying to learn how much powder to put in, how many drops of the liquid to put on top of it, because I do get a good result. That is that circle, not the squares. The circle is what I want the result to be. I'm just having troubles duplicating that on the other ones. I've done them and bored them out and redone them a couple of times, because if you put too much powder in, they get too cloudy and the light doesn't transfer through. So the secret is to make them as thin as possible. The thinner you make it, the clearer it will be, but it will also be more fragile. So I'm trying to find the happy medium of getting the right amount of powder in with the right amount of liquid, because doesn't seem to be any sort of measuring formula here that I can tell. And so that when I put the lights on it, it shines white instead of yellow. But that's where I'm at right now. And on the other project, I am coming up with some shapes to help mask on the Grissom, to mask off the silver areas. This it should be painted silver, and there's silver on the saucer section that needs to be masked off. So I'm coming up with those to try to come up with a comprehensive masking set to complement what Daniel Broadway sent me yesterday. So those are the two balls that I'm juggling in the air right now, and let's see how successfully they work out. Okay, here you can tell what's going on. The second one, the second square in, is the one I just fixed, and I think I might have come out with the right formula. It's less than you think it needs to be. That's your secret. But there you can see how yellow those headlights look. They look really yellow, and even more so in person than on the video. So those, I think I'm going to have to chip those out and redo them. Not looking forward to it, but I think it has to be done. Well, there you go. I've got the right-hand side headlights re-cleaned out. Away from all of that yellow epoxy is out of there. So now I can try to put some of the artificial nail acrylic back in there and see how well it turns out. Okay, so I am back, and I have taken the vinyl off the front of the redone headlights, and you can see the world of difference that it made between the old epoxied ones and the new dental acrylic or nail acrylic ones. So yes, I'm going to bore these ones out. There it goes. I'm going to bore these ones out and replace those. Look how nice and shiny and flat those came out. Beautiful. Now clean these out and do the same. Hello and welcome back. It is Wednesday, and we're going to do a little something different today. And by a little, I mean this little. This is probably the tiniest starship I have ever worked on trying to paint with templates. And this is the 1,000 scale Grissom from the 2-pack. Not the 2-pack, but the 2-pack of the Grissom and the Bird of Prey. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to see how much of this we can get done today. Now, I cheated and started yesterday. But what I've done is come up with a set of painting templates with the generous assistance of Daniel Broadway, who did a lot of the hard work. So that left me to quickly whip out the rest of it. What we're going to do is paint a Grissom today. And what I've done already is I have primed and I've done sub-assemblies. I mean, there really isn't a lot of work to do on these. It's like, what's 1, 2, this is 3 pieces, this is 2 pieces, this is 2 pieces. It's very quick, very simple. But what I'm going to do is paint it, and by starting on it, I have already primed it, put the sub-assemblies together, and I have painted some of these bigger areas that I am getting ready to mask. Because what we're going to do is what we've done on numerous other projects is to paint a color, put masks down to protect that color, and then paint another color on top of it. And because the silver here and this blue don't ever touch, I could go ahead and paint the silver and blue over top of the primer, so that the next step would be to mask these off and then paint the light gray, which covers a lot of this, mask the light gray, and then paint the white. And that's what we're going to do. Let's get started. Alrighty, I've just done the last little bit of masking before I'm ready to put the light gray on. There's some little squares here that need to mask over a dark gray, so I sprayed some dark gray down, put the masks over top of it. Now I'm ready to give this whole thing the light gray treatment. Also ready for the nacelles and for the main body here to get the light gray treatment. Alrighty, now the gray has had a good chance to dry, so now it's the time to put the masks over the things that I wish to keep gray, so that I can spray the white on there. Let's do that. Okay, we're getting ready to spray the white on the Grissom now, or what I'm calling white. Is going to be very, 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 very light gray, but it's going to be whiter than this, but maybe not, refrigerator white. But here you go. I've got the masks down for the areas that are going to stay gray. On here as well, and on the engines is a little piece that wraps around there. So these are all ready to go, so I just need to whip up some white paint and get with the spraying. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself, and I forgot to take care of these shapes here, which show up on the decal sheet right there, and they're meant to be right here on the front and back edge of the pylons. That's also meant to be that gray color. So what I've got to do, or what I've done, is I've resprayed those areas gray, and then I will plot some new vinyl to go over those areas, and then respray the white on top of that. But we're getting down to the short rows of it. I've got white all over everything else. I'm going to let that dry and then pull up the templates and see how well that turned out. Got white going on there. Just that last bit. You got to let that dry and then put some vinyl down. Okay, that makes it a little bit better. I quick whipped up a couple of lines to go there, and I put it over the dark gray, so now I can spray the white back over top of that and we'll be all caught up. Okay, so I've let the white dry for a while. I've even gone in and started playing with painting in some details, but it's time to take the masks off and see where we are. Well, there you go, and I couldn't be happier with these results. Look at that. You can see I've taken all the layers off. This was what we started with, was that blue, and then those little darker dots of gray, and then the medium gray. I'm sorry, I did the silver at the same time I did the blue. And then spray the white over top of all of it. And now we're ready for, well, I'll tell you the truth, I probably want to put the nacelles on before I spray the gloss on it, so that it gets ready for decals, because that gloss might go on a little thick, and these nacelles are a tight fit as it is. So if I put those on and then spritz it with a gloss clear, and then we'll be ready to decal. And I'm not going to decal tonight, but I easily could, and that would be a model in a day, basically. But I'm not trying to set any speed records here. I just want to get some good results. So I'm going to hit it with the clear and let it sit for a good long while before I put the decals on tomorrow. Hello, good morning, welcome back, all of that good stuff. It is Thursday, my friends. It is Thursday, and we're going to be doing some decals today. So, and these are round 2 decals. So I have taken a good stiff cup of coffee. I've girded my loins. I've done about as much as I can to get ready for using decals. This is the sheet of decals for the Grissom. Now, obviously, all of these are not going to be needed. Certainly, none of the alternate names, since I am going to be building the Grissom, I will not be using any of the alternate names for that. Will not be using any of these since we have painted these details on. What I will be using is these 2 big ones, because there's not really any way around it. I was thinking of painting this shape and these stripes, but everything here is so integrated, and that red stripe is so integrated into this decal that I cannot separate it. So therefore, plus this has a printed detail in it of these stripes. If they had textured that bit there, I would have definitely painted it. But since they did not texture it, using the decals has become a must. Now, because this ship is so tiny and so wee and so very, very small, I have left it in 2 parts to do the decaling on, because it's just going to be easier to handle that way. And I can like decal this, put it aside, decal the bottom of this, put it aside. You know, I can tackle it in areas, tackle it by area rather than trying to put the whole ship together, than trying to slide decals in and around it. So, and this joint here is very obvious and will look good even after you have finished it. So that's not a big problem. So what I want to do this morning is decide which of these decals I need to use and eliminate the ones I don't, so that I am not overly confused by things. This has got a lot of cases where decals are going on the edges, and that does not bode well for me, because it looks like you might have to deal with some overhang on the edge of the decal. I don't know how tightly they are cropped on the carrier film, so that's going to be an interesting test. Plus there are tiny windows, tiny sets of windows that I assume are going to go probably around there somehow. So it's going to be a fun experiment to figure all this out. So let's take a deep breath, get a good swig of coffee, and get ready to do some round 2 decaling. Okay, I have separated out the decals that I'm going to be needing from the decals that I will not be needing. Those are the ones I don't need. These are the ones I do need. It's as simple as that. And I guess the first thing to do is to start with these honking big ones. So let's get those into the water. Alrighty, I've got the first stage of the decals done. Because so many of these overlap or sit on top of each other, I really don't want to like start putting all the little windows down on top of this one until it's nice and dry, so I don't run the risk of re-wetting it and having it start to move again. These are going to be interesting. These ones that go around this very fine edge, right in there, that very fine edge. It's going to be interesting to see how well this decals lay down. These ones that go on the front and back edge of the pylons, there's almost a microscopic place for those to sit, so that's going to be interesting as well. These guys don't fit as nicely as I would like them to. If I try to make it fit the indent, it throws off some other areas. So and they're not drying in for some reason. I mean, they're sitting there nice and glossy and all that, but I've got Solvaset and I've got Microset and Solvaset on them, and they don't seem to be puckering in the way that I hoped that they would. So we're going to have to let those dry for a good long while before addressing that. But at least they're not, these decals are pretty tough. They're not tearing up which is good. But I'm getting all of these fine red pinstripes in, and you know, red pinstripes are my nemesis, so I'm going to let all that dry and then come back to it a little later. It is as I feared. These edge decals don't play nice. I was lulled into a false sense of security because the back looks so good. Those actually came out very nice. Even those ones came out nice. This is where it all goes to, you know, where in a handbasket. It is that decal. It is needed to be shaved down on the top and on the bottom. Learned that lesson a little too late. You can see how much, well, maybe if you can, if it focuses on my finger instead of everything behind it. Come on. Anyway, whoop, you can see how much carrier film is on either side of it, and I tried pulling it back off and trimming it to no avail. So we're going to, what I'm going to do is get this damn thing off my finger first, but then what we're going to do is take this decal off and simply paint that color in, and it will not have the little black dash stripes on it. That gives me no hope at all of figuring out whether or not these are going to work, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint those as well. The ones that go here, there's just no way that's going to wrap around the edge of something so tiny. So nice idea, round two, poor execution. Alright, here's the verdict. These guys, throw them away, scrap them, they're not going to be used. These windows I am going to be putting on probably this evening because, or at least later this afternoon. I went ahead and painted in that edge with the matching light blue, but I'm not going to put the little dashes. I'm not going to try to salvage this decal, the dashes out of it. I'm going to make myself happy with those back decals that I got those on. All I've got really left to do, I touched up some paint. Needed to paint those little balls there silver. Touched up a little bit of gray here and there. And I need to let this dry. Yeah, probably stick it on there because all of the windows that are left need to go on the top of the saucer. They are all of these window sets, and I will wait to put those on, and I can do that with this actually in place. So I'm thinking what I might do is let this dry for a good long while and hit it with the flat coat, and hit the top of this with the flat coat, so that when the two things are put together, I won't have to worry about trying to put flat coat in between those two sections. And then that will allow me to attach the top and bottom, put the window decals on the top of that saucer section, and then flat coat everything else. I'm just thinking that it's going to be easier to decal once everything is put together. So that's why I'm thinking that. And then I don't know, I'm going to do some reference checking online. I don't think there are pennant decals on the inboard sides of the warp nacelles like there are on the outboard sides. I've got two sets. They give you two sets, but I can't see anywhere in the instructions where it says that these are supposed to, be used, on the insides as well. It only shows the outside. So let me go check on that. But other than that, that will finish up the decaling, and we can move on to something else. Yeah, my official verdict is you can do it if you wanna, but I can't find any official reference that shows decal or shows the markings on the inboard sides of the warp nacelles. A couple of little like eagle moss things and little trinkets have it, but anything that resembles a screen capture does not. So that is going to be my verdict. Okay, I went ahead and started putting the windows down. I've got the this row of windows. Where's my pointer? There, I got this row of windows down, and now there's another row of windows that goes right up in here between this indent and the red stripe. Actually, a set windows goes right in there. So once I get these last bit of windows in, then it'll be ready for the flat coat. Well, let them dry and then put the flat coat on. And that, my friends, is the last of the decals that is going on. The set of windows are on the top. This is one flat coat shy of being finished. And no, I did not use all of the striping around that front edge because it's simply not wide enough to hold the decal. So I painted it instead. The back edge is, for some odd reason. The front edge is not. Now there's some flaws with this kit. I'll start there, and we'll admit to that much, because as small as this thing is, this deck is all one piece. So you're going to get sinkholes in the mold. You can see this thing right here. That looks like that dent right there looks to be like a sinkhole to make up for what's going on underneath. So yeah, if you were going to try to make this super duper accurate and fix everything, you might want to level that out before you even started painting. And there are some obvious seam lines. Now I took this, and rather than filling it in, since it's nice and consistent, I just took that as a hull line, just like, oh, I don't know, just like there are hull lines here. I took that as a hull line. That's something else you could fill in and sand and putty and do all of that to fix. There are, you could probably get rid of that joint too if you wanted to. But for it to be a 1,000 scale kit, it's not all that bad. It's like one step above a miniature at this point. Let me show you something interesting. I need to take this in the other room to do it. Okay, here you have 1,000 scale kits. This has been advertised as being 1,000 scale. So you see the true size difference between not only the Grissom against the Classic Enterprise, but the Grissom against the Enterprise, and more importantly, the Grissom compared to the Galaxy class Enterprise. Now, I don't know about you, but that makes it a tiny, tiny ship when you compare it to the size of the Galaxy class Enterprise. Or, conversely, makes the Enterprise D a very large ship. But these are all 1,000 scale kits. Now I could grab my Enterprise B off the shelf somewhere and put it next to it, but I really don't want to do that because it's delicate and I don't want to move it. But that'll just give you a bird's eye view of what a 1,000 scale kit of the Grissom looks like compared to these other beauties. So it's a tiny ship. A little scout vessel, nothing more than that. Could probably fit. Now it wouldn't fit in the hangar bay of the Enterprise D. But you remember that early, I guess it was first season, Next Gen episode when this was used as the Teokoski, and it was pushed in front of a piece of stellar matter to deflect it away from the Enterprise. That's a tiny, tiny ship next to the Enterprise D. But there you go. Now this would be a nice kit to see in 350 scale, because even at 350 scale it probably wouldn't be much more than a foot long, maybe 14 inches. That would be fun. And there you go. Quick flat coat on it to knock all of the glossiness down, and you have a beautiful little tiny starship. Okay, welcome back. It is Friday. It's been a weird day. That's why I've not gotten a lot done. Finished up the Grissom yesterday and let some people know about the templates and immediately got orders for them. So I was popping that order out into the mail today, getting that ready to go. And now we're back to the cab. And I was toying with the idea of getting these lights in. And then it hit me. If I'm going to do any damaging to this thing, I probably should do all of that before I start putting the lights in. So I'm thinking I'm going to open up the roof here. I'm going to raise the roof and make a hole there for a Lilu sized hole, and do the bullet hits on the side here just to jazz it up some. So that kind of took the lighting back out. I was having problems with it anyway because I was getting stuck on getting lights to all these angles, and this one box here just wasn't quite cutting it. I think what I need to do is make individual smaller boxes to go that direct the lights better, because the one strip wasn't hitting all of these quite evenly like I would have wanted. So and the way the spacing is on these strips, they weren't lining up with the openings. So that's really what was causing the consternation and why I kept putting it off. But what I'm going to do is put in this, obviously, this dividing wall, and that dividing wall has to have a big opening in the back of it here where you would see, you know, the window that was between the driver's cabin and the passenger's cabin. So what I'm going to do is cut that out, maybe put a piece of clear styrene in there to act as the window, and that will allow me to make this much more interesting, because then I can like hang down the little taxi sign that, you know, should be hanging in there, and I could sculpt up some seats. It's going to take me some epoxy sculpt and a little bit of time to do that. And if I'm going to do that, then I want to show it off, so I need to make the hole. So that's where we are right now. I am also kind of playing around with this bird of prey that came with the Grissom set, and I may get some paint on that today, but it's going to be a weird end to the week. Okay, here is a screen grab of the actual scene from the movie that shows the shape of the hole. That's probably the best recollection you're going to get, so that's what I'm going to be using for my reference. And here you can see the taxi sign hanging down in the background, and the overall shape of the window, and some greeblies on the inside. And also important to note how little of the actual cab window you see. It's, you know, like eye level. Those cab windows are awful small, but you know, when you compare them to actual car windows, or yes, they're tiny, but they're way up high, so you shouldn't try to think that they're actually useful for seeing out anything more than just a slit. Here's another really good shot of the ceiling of the cab. The cab sign would be right about there, but it has been pulled inside. And let's see.
Pissed off? Look pissed off, want to play hard?
Now there's this quilting on the inside cabin. Okay, and this will be the last bit, but then you can see the detail of the cab around the outside, and that's all of the movie I'm going to show you. Okay, did a quick sizing comparison between the size of the kit and this JPEG of that screen grab, and I blew it up to about the right size. And it not only does it show you how pretty accurate the kit is, but it also gives me the size and the shape for the hole, which I had in the wrong spot because I had it a little bit too centered, and it looks like it should be more to the side than that. So I'm going to trace that down through and mark out the top of the roof. Don't know exactly what I'm going to do about these flaps. I may just cut this whole hole in and then add some sheet styrene melted flaps, but how to sand them into the rest of the body is going to be a neat trick. Okay, I've got the corrected shape transferred to the top now. All I need to do is take the plunge and start making the hole. Okay, I've started the holing. I drilled out some holes on the top. All I gotta do is connect all these and chop out the bits in the middle, but I have mapped out the bullet hits as, you know, not scientifically accurate, but as good of a flavor as what's on here, and I have a couple other references one that shows the front fender and one that shows the back fender, or the back end, and it looks kind of like that. That's close enough for jazz. But now all I'm going to do is take a Dremel with a round head and just go in and just knock these guys out. So let's do that now. Well, that was fun. There you go. Bang, 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 bang. That might have been fun to do this after everything was painted and primed and, you know, finished up and everything, but I will still have to go back and repaint them in after I've repainted the yellow and the gray and all that kind of stuff. But you can see how the fact that they're all fairly uniform and universally deep and all of that shows you that they were just bits of, I'm guessing there were squibs underneath the plaster here that just exploded on set to give that look. I don't know, but that's my thought. So they all needed to be fairly universal and nice and round. Ooh, I missed one. I gotta do that one. But there you go. So I'm gonna join all these together and make the big hole. Okay, I've got the hole roughed out, and you can really see just how thick this thing is cast. Probably going to go outside with the Dremel, thin this down a whole lot more from the inside while I've got it in this state. Go ahead and thin that down some more so that it looks a little bit more realistic when you are looking at it like that. It should be maybe a half as thick as that. Okay, I gotta go take a shower because I got nothing but a bunch of resin dust all over. But there you go, there's the holes. There's me starting to work on the inside, and I hollowed out a bunch, which gave me a whole bunch more headroom inside. It's going to change all of my boxes for the inside because the contours have now changed, but that's okay. I was probably thinking of scrapping those anyway. But as I've cleared out a whole lot more in here and thinned this, particularly the roof down, so that's way thinner than it was. I think that's going to work great. So the next step would be to put this dividing wall in and start massing out where those different compartments are going to end up being. But I think that's well on the way of, and I like the fact that you can see through the paint and into the resin, which is kind of like that. So, you know, maybe I just need to put a little silver in each of those holes and wipe it off and be done. That could be fun. Maybe all of the damaging that I'm doing to this yellow paint job will actually work in favor. Who knows? But yeah, I got to get this dust out of my hair and out of. Luckily, Elliot, I was wearing your mask. Thank you very much. I saved my lungs from that. Didn't have to breathe any of it in, but I need to go clean the dust off of me. I just found a very good way to tell how much of this I've removed. This wall used to sit at the same level as the bottom of the cab, and if you look there, you can see if I raise that up to where it was. Let me see. Yeah, if I raise that up to where it was, you can see how much was taken out. So that's quite a bit. What I want to do is have some fun. Is make a new center wall here to allow for the revised headroom, and map out the center window. Helps if everything's in view. So what I want to do, see there, you can see how much was taken out. What I want to do is make a new center dividing wall and map out that window in the center there and get that. I think I want to glue that in place with the top of the cab and not rely on it fitting down that way. I think that's going to be the issue, and then I can build everything kind of on the bottom. I can build everything up out of the base here, and then just sit the shell on top of it. But I want to make sure that wall is in the right place before I do that. Yeah, I think what I've got now is a series of interior walls. This one goes like so. Maybe this is the front, so it goes like so. This one goes like so. And this one goes up here like so. But it gives me my 3 partitions so that I can start working in the details around each of the walls. Like I can put in the light boxes here and some of the interior details there, and the seats here and the other light boxes in the back. So what I'm debating on right now is how much of this I want to glue in place and how much of it I want to work on outside of the walls before, or outside of the cab before I glue them down. So I'm pondering about that, particularly in how it relates to the backs of the seats. Now, were this a perfect world and this was not a solid hunk, I would be boring down into it to give me the well, see, here's the center wall. The front of the seats, let's see, that's the center wall. This is the dashboard here. Corbin's seat pretty much goes the full length, and then these benches go here. There's the back wall. There's the bench. There's the main wall, and there's the bench. This is the top of the back of the seat. This is the top of the back of the seat, and then that's the bottom of the bench. I would be cutting down into that in this area here for where the footwells would go. Because right now you could see maybe that is the top of the seat, and the, for lack of a better term, say it goes something like this. This is the bench, top of the bench, and then this would be the back of the chair, something like that. So I got to figure out whether or not it's worth trying to dig any of that stuff out. I really don't think it is, particularly for how little you'll be able to see through the windows. Okay, I just grabbed a handful of these guys. You've seen me use these before. And I'm basically throwing them together because I'm thinking these might look good as seat backs. Now I've got to spray some gray primer on them so that you can see that they are in fact solid on the side, on the top there. But I'm thinking that they might work very nicely as the bench, the back benches of the seats. So nothing ventured, nothing gained, but let me throw some spray on them and see how they look. Well, wasn't that a week? This is where we're going to leave it for this week. Potpourri week 4. I believe it's week 4. Didn't get as much done on the taxi as I would have liked. Got a lot done. You know, you get to that point sometimes where you're working on a kit and it's, you know, it's okay. It's not really gelling for you, but you think you come up with this one idea, whether it's a paint job or a base or something like that, that really reinvigorates your enthusiasm for the project. Well, it turned out that putting a big old hole in the roof and shooting up the side of it really reinvigorated my enthusiasm for the project. Now I did do some useful stuff at the beginning of the week, learning how to work with that nail acrylic to make the headlight holes filled in. You see that? There you go. Let me see if I can find my flashlight. There we go. See if you can see an idea here. There you go. And in the back. So learning how to use that was a fun thing. Boy, that stuff stinks to high heaven though. Whew, make sure you're well ventilated. I don't know how I don't know how you could work in a nail salon using that kind of stuff all day long. But that reinvigorated my love of getting this thing done. But we also took the side trip into Grissom land. Look at that little baby starship on a stick. But getting this little guy done was fun. It was a nice diversion, and I got a nice another template set out of the deal. So that was nice. And you know, I spent 2 days on this. That had I concentrated on the cab, you know, I'd be 2 days further down the road on this, and who knows, maybe even done. But that's how my week went. Also, A little bit of bird of prey here. We're working on that. I guess that's the chick of prey. It is. That's how small it is. It's not quite a bird yet. It's a baby chick of prey. So that's how my week went. Hope yours went very well as well. Join us again next week when we will certainly be finishing up this cab, because my spies tell me that there are pods on the way. That's getting very close, and that's going to be a long, involved, drawn-out project, because I've got many electronics going into the pod and many fun things to surprise you all with. So until next week, when we're back at this taxi to finish it up, be good to each other, be good to a stranger. Wouldn't that be nice? And we'll see you here next time.